Okay, well, here it is, Kirkham a Movie a Day, back again, this time for a video presentation. We are talking about Jurassic Park Part 2, which is actually called The Lost World Jurassic Park 2, and Jurassic Park 3, a triple feature that we went to on Sunday evening at the Egyptian Theater. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your history with Jurassic Park?
My history with Jurassic Park. Well, how old was I when the first one came out? 5?
5.
I was 5. And I remember Alice and I begging you to take us, and you resisted for a long, long time. Finally, I don't know, had you and Mom seen it and
Yes.
then decided it was okay to take us, or?
Well, I don't know that we decided it was okay to take you. I think we decided finally that we didn't want to put up with all the begging as much anymore. And we decided to take you. We actually went in October. The film opened in June, and we went in October. So it had been out for several months. We went to a second-run theater to see it, not too far from where you guys were going to school at the time.
Which isn't something you could really do today. I don't think you could wait that long.
No, movie be out of theaters in, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
If they haven't gotten all they're going to get out of a theater run in 6 weeks, they're out of business. So, yeah, nowadays, movies don't run that long in theaters.
No, they don't.
So we took you to Jurassic Park as a 5-year-old. Yes, I'm afraid I did that. I took my 5-year-old to see Jurassic Park. And what did you think of it? Do you remember your reaction to it?
I don't. I have a vague recollection of actually going to the movie, but I don't remember actually seeing it.
Okay.
So, do you remember?
Well, I remember that it's pretty intense, of course, and there's that whole scene where the T-Rex attacks the kids in the car, and you guys weren't traumatized by it, but you definitely were scared and excited by it, and you didn't have nightmares. I think your sister had a few nightmares over the years based on that kind of thing.
I remember she told me about them, recurring nightmare of velociraptors being in the house and having to hide in the cabinets to get away from them. And that, I know, was taken directly from the kitchen sequence with the kids running around trying to hide from the velociraptors.
Oh, absolutely. So,
but that was not me. That was her.
And I assume that this was your first Jeff Goldblum movie.
Well,
no, you know what?
First one that I saw in theaters, maybe.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Because I'm pretty sure I'd have seen Silverado at this point, and I think there would have been a couple other things. Would I have seen Buckaroo Banzai at this point?
You might have seen it, but it would have been one of those things that you just saw as we were watching stuff at home.
A clip of it instead of the full thing.
You didn't watch the whole movie, I'm sure. When you were 5. I can't imagine putting Buckaroo Banzai on for my 7 and 5-year-old. Although, if I'm running Jurassic Park for them and showing them Jaws when they're 3, I might have been that cruel. I've made those kinds of mistakes before. So Jurassic Park, of course, is a Spielberg classic. I think most people would recognize it as maybe one of the great, if not the greatest, popcorn movie ever made. People enjoy the hell out of it. It's exciting and intense.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Crichton was a very inventive writer, and he came up with an interesting scenario that I know it's not really practical, but it's an interesting concept and a theory, and that's kind of what science fiction is.
And there's enough of the science-y stuff in there to kind of make you go, all right, I'm watching a movie where dinosaurs exist in modern day. I can go ahead and suspend my disbelief for a little bit to say, okay, they collected their DNA from mosquitoes that were frozen and sat throughout the years. So there's a good, and I do, speaking of the books, I did read the books a couple years ago, and there's obviously a lot more of the sciencey stuff in there, and I think it's a little bit better explained in the books. Obviously, there's more time to get into it, but
This is one of the few movies where I've read the book ahead of time, and before the movie was even being talked about, Jurassic Park was a big bestseller, and I read quite a bit of stuff, but I don't always read the stuff that's popular literature. But I remember reading that, and they were talking about making a movie of it, and the casting that I had always heard was Harrison Ford as Dr. Grant and William Hurt as Ian Malcolm. And I thought that would have been an interesting cast. That would have probably worked pretty well.
I was actually thinking, as we were watching it last night, that Dr. Grant has a lot of Indiana Jones-esque characteristics.
Including a hat.
Including the hat, and that's actually exactly what I thought. It was like the hat is very, very much an Indiana Jones kind of throwback, and we had just been watching the Indiana Jones earlier in the day.
That's
so.
right. We watched 15-20 minutes of
Temple.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Don't say anything about that. Oh yes, plus we had
Temple of
and
Doom.
Temple of Doom. They
Yeah.
apparently they were running it
Yeah.
all day long on one of
Yeah.
the satellite channels yesterday, so we got a little bit of that in. There are a lot of things in the movie that are pretty cool. The DNA sequence where it's animated and comes in and explains everything is really neat.
I actually was thinking about that. That was a scene as I was watching. I was going, this is one of those things where they have to explain stuff, and they don't want to just sit there and have a scientist say, well, this is what we did. And they do it in a way that is interesting enough that you're not taken out of the movie, but it's still kind of the idea of it is kind of a dull sequence. We're going to explain the science behind it. But I was thinking how well it was done, and the fact that Mr. DNA makes appearances later in Jurassic World. He has a cameo, and it's a thing that fans love, and so I was kind of struck by that as we were watching, going, that's something that I think not a lot of people would have known how to handle well, and it's a short sequence, but it's quite entertaining.
Yeah, when filmmakers use clever ways to do exposition, and it's entertaining, and it's not just people talking for no particular reason except to clearly give the audience some information, it's appreciated that people went the extra mile to give you something cinematic and interesting.
And it makes sense in the story. This is going to be a ride that we're going to have where people get to see the behind the scenes and get to see as they're going through the attractions and the theme park. So.
I don't know if anybody will remember either America Sings or the Carousel of Progress, where the audience moved. The stage stayed the same, but the whole audience spun around. That was a attraction that they had at Disneyland, and that
they still
sequence
have it,
is
but
based on that.
But it's different now. It's like the World of Tomorrow or something.
Oh, okay.
It's a little different, but yeah, it's very similar.
It's been forever since I've been to Disneyland, so I don't know how they've updated all
I
of
think
those
it's
things.
all Marvel stuff now. So.
Oh, well, that would make sense. That would make sense. That's something else for Disney to exploit. Well, the idea of Jurassic Park, of course, is that it's a Disneyland type attraction, only with dinosaurs. And of course, this is the testing phase. Later on, when they get to Jurassic World, it's actually open. We're not talking about Jurassic World, though, because it was not on our feature attraction last night. Since we've seen Jurassic Park, well, I won't say thousands of times. I might say hundreds of times, although I'm not sure that we quite have gotten to 100 times, but definitely dozens of times. It's an easy one for us to slip into, enjoy from just about any point, and then move on to the next one. Is there something particular about Jurassic Park that you wanted to talk about before we move on to The Lost World?
Just that with multiple viewings, I always like seeing what I didn't notice before. Or maybe now with the internet being what it is, I was noticing a lot of inconsistencies. For example, when the T-Rex comes out of the paddock, the car, the lawyer leaves the car and he leaves the door open. In several shots, the door is closed, and then you come back and the kid closes the door, and things like that, which don't affect your viewing maybe the first or second time, but the 20th time around, you're kind of going, oh. And of course, there's the one where the raptors open the door to the kitchen. You see the guy's hand go out to steady the raptor tail, and that just things that on a multiple viewing suddenly.
Yeah, obviously, there's so
notice.
many things that you aren't paying attention to because
Right.
you're caught up in the story the first time.
Exactly.
Like, for example, where the hell did that giant wall come from in the T-Rex
Right. Oh,
paddock?
yeah.
You know, and wasn't he at this level, and now suddenly he must have been down at this level?
Right,
That makes no sense whatsoever.
Right.
But
you
nope.
don't think about it
No.
the first time around, or
Yeah.
even the second time. And then the other thing that I noticed was there were some bits of dialogue that I didn't really catch, even on previous viewings. There's some dialogue in the opening sequence. I don't remember what it is now, but I could hear it, and that comes with having the surround sound and being in that nice theater with all the noise. So.
Yeah.
Just things like that, which I think it's nice to go see a movie that you've already seen several times in a theater and get that experience.
The theatrical experience is the best. All right. Well, we won't belabor Jurassic Park. I'll put up some links here in the post, and if you want to see some other comments about Jurassic Park that I've written, you'll be able to check on those. The two films that we saw last night that I've never posted on before, and I don't have any commentary on, are the Lost World Jurassic Park 2 and Jurassic Park 3. So let's start in the middle here with the Jurassic Park The Lost World. I know that you have read the books, and you've actually done a couple of posts about the inconsistencies between the book and the movie, including the fact, of course, that between the two books, basically Ian Malcolm rises from the dead.
Yes.
Because he is a victim in the first story.
Yeah, so a little bit of a spoiler alert for the book, for Jurassic Park book. Ian Malcolm dies at the end, and so does Hammond, in pretty spectacular fashion. And the second book literally just rewrites Malcolm's death. In the first chapter, it's, there were these rumors, and it's like, no, at the end of Jurassic Park, he was dead. He didn't get off the island. And in the second book, he's recovering in a hospital. I actually think this is a case where I like the movie better than the book. I think the book has a lot of interesting stuff going for it, but I think that the movie is a better story. And I like that it's... Because everything in the book, and I don't want to get too much into the comparisons, but everything in the book is just... There's... the Malcolm character is very inconsistent. He's kind of the complete opposite of the way that he was in the first book, which I like that in the movie he's the same Malcolm. He still has the same hang-ups about this. Why are we doing this? These things should just be left alone or destroyed, and they're not natural, and yada yada yada. So I think that the characters are a little bit better developed in the movie. The action is a little bit better, and I kind of like... I heard somebody describe it once as a roller coaster. It's all the ups and downs and twists and turns, and that's what you're going for. You're going for a roller coaster ride. And I like I know a lot of people don't like the second movie. I really like the second movie.
It seems to be polarizing. I know that there are a lot of people who find it very entertaining and enjoy the heck out of it, and others who are looking for something to take a knock on it, since it is a sequel, and obviously kind of a cash grab that they're putting in.
Well, and I also know that this was kind of Spielberg's attempt to make up for the Jaws sequels. He never got to do the Jaws sequels. He decided not to do them, and saw what happened with them, and said, well, if they're going to do a Jurassic Park sequel, I want to be involved in it, because look what happened when I wasn't involved. And so I think that it's, like I said, I think it's still pretty good. I think that it's good that it was in Spielberg's hands, because I think if it hadn't been, we would have gotten more of the book, and that wouldn't have necessarily been good.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I read The Lost World once and remember almost none of it, but the movie is very memorable. I don't remember if the character of his daughter was in the book.
There were two kids in the book that had no relationship to him, and basically the reason that they got onto the island was very, very weak.
Okay.
So it was, yeah, the have, and I don't know that the daughter's necessary in the movie, but I know that having a kid tie-in is
Yeah.
good because the intended audience is obviously younger, and having somebody that they can relate to makes up for some of the other stuff.
Right.
But yeah, so in the book, no, that it wasn't his daughter.
All right. Well, one of the things that I liked, and I understand, it was actually shot originally when they made Jurassic Park, was the inclusion of the opening, which was something that I had remembered from the first book.
Yes.
And I thought that was a great opening. I was surprised that they didn't use it in the original movie, although I thought the opening of the original movie was terrific. That whole
Yes.
sequence where everything's dark and they think the dinosaur's coming through, you, the audience, think the dinosaur's coming through the jungle, and it turns out to be a forklift with a
Yes,
dinosaur in a
yes,
box.
yeah.
I like that whole sequence, but the sequence with the little girl on the beach, with the yacht, and everybody kind of, just vacationing and picnicking on the island, and then her discovery of all the little compies, that apparently was shot for the first movie.
Interesting.
And they didn't use it, and they decided that they wanted to use it, and that makes sense.
I think that's an interesting choice too, because again, in the books, it's a lot more complicated. But I think having a worker be injured is a lot more acceptable for an audience to say, "Oh, it's a theme park, and they're having some issues, and it's not as scary as having people stumble across the island and have these creatures already out." And so having that be in the second movie, I think works really well. And I really like the opening sequence in the second movie too. I like the kind of the compies are great. They're kind of nasty little things.
Yeah. Well, and that's the sequence that we don't get with Hammond dying at the
Yes.
end, with the copies jumping all over him.
And
we get a little bit of that later in this movie with, I think Dieter is the character played by Peter Stormare, and we get a death by compy in that sequence.
I will say, like we were saying with the opening sequence, some of the things that weren't included from the books are kind of sprinkled in throughout the rest of the movies, and we'll kind of get into that when we talk about the third movie. But
oh yeah, okay, some more of that kind of stuff happens. I kind of like the setup where Ian has been discredited at the beginning. He violated his confidentiality agreement that he signed. That's the legal excuse they have for dragging him through the mud, and he's kind of, as a result, on the outs in his world.
Yes, which is interesting. I've seen this movie, I can't even count how many times, and I don't know that I actually ever picked up on that until this time around. Maybe because I was so excited to get into the meat of the story, but I was paying more attention at the beginning going, oh, well that's why he's suddenly, having to maybe do something else, and he's not credited and whatnot, and he's got this kind of reputation now, and it's like, yeah, interesting.
It does make you wonder what Dr. Sadler and Dr. Grant said. I guess they just accepted their compensation and kept their mouths shut.
That seems to be kind of the indication.
But still, you have a bunch of dead people on the park site, and I guess they abandoned it, and all the dinosaurs on that island died. I guess that's the explanation that we get there, and of course it turns out that it's a completely different site that you're going to on the second movie.
Although I'll say, I think actually the T-Rex in Jurassic World is supposed to be the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. So
well, since it doesn't have a collar and a name on it.
Yeah. But I'm just, I don't know if we're actually, if that's something that they've written to erase past story, or if it's just a kind of nod to the film. But so I don't know if all the dinosaurs on the first island are actually dead.
Yes, they got moved. I don't know, something like that. But the idea that they've kind of created their own environment on this second island, I think, is an interesting one, and that the company InGen is trying to keep it all contained and quiet, and
And
They're trying to figure out a way to make some money back.
Yes, and I thought it was kind of with the sequel and having to have an explanation for why there's suddenly a new island and whatnot. I thought that the explanation was actually pretty good. Well, this is where we manufactured them, and then we transferred them over, which would explain in the first one the Velociraptor coming in that first sequence. Oh, it's being carried over from the other island, and so I thought that was pretty well established, and I liked that even though it's suddenly there's a new island, it didn't feel like a cheap shot.
Yeah, which it felt when I read the book. I felt a little bit like, oh well, we'll just rewrite the whole story and do it again on a different island. Whereas in the movie, it feels a little bit more organic. It makes a little bit more sense. I don't know that it's still the best way to do it, but it worked well enough, and I like that. The big advantage, of course, is that you get to see all the dinosaurs that you didn't get to see the first time out. I mean, they talk. Dr. Grant mentions in the first movie how the Triceratops was his favorite when he was a kid. Stegosaurus was always my favorite when I was a kid. In fact, I think there was a couple of books that I read about, the Stegosaurus of something Canyon or something. It was a children's book, and the kids have, basically a Stegosaurus that they have out in the desert someplace that they are kind of taking care of and relating with. And I always liked that, and I was glad that they got to be in the second movie. And then you've got some of the other ones that. What's his name? The
Roland?
Roland, thank you. Yeah, Roland. Roland just gives nicknames too, because he can't get all the names right. Elvis, and the Friar Tuck and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And those were cool. I like that too.
I did like being able to see, and I liked that you saw them, but they weren't necessarily the stars of the show. You still had the T-Rex and the Velociraptors are still the stars, but you get a scene with the Stegosaurus, and you get a scene with the Triceratops and the other ones.
Yeah. Well, when people criticize this film, for whatever reasons they do, I never hear criticism of two of the best things about the film. One is that whole sequence where the trailer is attacked.
Yes.
Which builds tension like almost all Spielberg films do, intensely, adds another layer on top, adds something else happening, then gets it, hypes it up a little bit more, and then, gives you visual elements to the whole thing that you just go, oh my gosh, can they ramp it up any more? And that whole scene where, What's the character name played by Julianne Moore called? I forget. Sarah. Where Sarah falls down and she's on the glass at the bottom of the trailer, and it's cracking slowly, and the John Williams music is going, and you can see the cracks there, and then they grab the rope, and then they're climbing up, and then the rope comes loose, and then they climb up again, and then the trailer comes loose, and then while the trailer's coming loose, they've got the BMW, or the Mercedes, I should say, up there spinning around on the ground, and then the two T-Rexes attack Eddie. Well, poor Eddie, who's trying to save lives, and he's still trying to save lives, holding on to it when he goes. I mean, he's
and I thought that was also interesting that he's the first death in the movie, right? Yeah. And you kind of in Jurassic Park. The lawyer's the first death, right? And the lawyer's not a really likable character. He's not. You don't hate him the way that you would some lawyers, but Eddie is a good guy, and he's just trying to do what he needs to do, and even as the T-Rexes are tearing apart the car, he's still stepping on the gas.
Right. Remember, he refrained from shooting the Stegosauruses earlier because he didn't want to do that kind of thing. So you get the sense that he is a good guy, and it's tough that he goes. And Richard Schiff, we're West Wing fans around here, so we're happy to see Richard Schiff with or without the beard. So that was pretty good. And then the second sequence that's so great is the Velociraptors going after them as they run through the long grass.
That's a great overhead shot of just the people being taken and the
You can see the
the
grass
lines.
trails in
Yeah.
the grass from above, even though you don't see the velociraptors directly.
right.
And then the people just start going down, and that's
That's pretty good.
that's a good scene. Now the scene where Kelly yells at the dinosaur and he turns around and she does her gymnastics kick on him. That's widely criticized.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
You know, it's an action sequence in the film,
Yeah.
and it's another one of those ones where they build up some more tension.
It got a
and then
cheer
build up
last night in the theater.
Oh yeah.
She kicked the thing and everybody went, yeah,
Yeah.
and clapped.
Yeah.
And so I'm going, at that point, you're going with it. I will say this time around, by the time we're getting to San Diego, it felt a little bit long. It kind of felt like they had a nice ending point kind of on the island, but then they stretch it out. And I actually like the San Diego sequence, and maybe it was because it was late, maybe because we had already watched the other movie, but it suddenly felt, I was like, okay, I know we still have another 20 minutes of this.
Yeah, if you're just watching the one film, it's probably not as big a deal, but they set it up earlier in the film that they are talking about going to San Diego, that they've got a facility, that they're going to do this. I think everybody should know that's going to happen.
Right.
And the fact that it happens gets widely criticized. People say, "Oh, they should never have ended up in San Diego." I'm going,
which is not my complaint.
No.
My complaint is
It's
that it
it's
just
long.
felt long at
Right,
that point, and
right.
I like the movie, and I think you're right. I think if you're just watching The Lost World, it all feels fine. But after watching Jurassic Park, you're kind of like, all right, it's getting a little long at this point.
All right, the one thing about the Lost World that does bug me at the end, it's a good creepy sequence when the Venture is coming into port and everybody on the boat is apparently, it runs into the pier and everybody on the boat is apparently dead and mangled and destroyed, and the T-Rex is still in the hold, and you're going, okay, so what happened?
Yeah.
And I'm
And
still befuddled by
I will say that that's one sequence that I know gets pretty well criticized, and it's because the captain's arm is hanging from the
Right.
wheel, and you're like, how did that happen? Logistically, and I could see those things a little bit more this time around. It doesn't bother me enough to take away from my enjoyment of the film, but yeah, you're right. It's how did the T-Rex get back into the container, and who closed it, and did the guy close it and then die?
Or was there something else on the boat that's not on the boat anymore?
Right.
It's just
That yeah.
it's not clear, but the idea of the boat being honed in just on the signal and it's coming in and then it crashes and then they get on there and everybody's gone. That's like Dracula.
Yes.
When the ship is there and everybody's going, what's happened? And everybody has vanished. And
Yes.
it's
Exactly.
a good sequence. And the Venture, by the way, that's the name of the boat from King Kong.
I did not, but that does not surprise me.
All right. And another little piece of trivia, the guy who is the writer for Lost World, who did the screenplay for the movie, he's the guy who gets eaten by the T-Rex outside of the video store.
Okay. I was thinking about that. I'm like, that poor guy, what did he ever do?
He wrote the script for this film, so they decided to punish him there.
And I will also say this time around, we've talked about this as a criticism of recent superhero movies about the mass destruction of action films. This time around, I also noticed that a little bit. You're getting the boat crashing into the dock. However, it seems like most of the people there are okay.
Right.
Maybe a little beaten up. But you've got the T-Rex running through the city, people crashing into cars, people getting stomped on, the one guy getting eaten. I still don't think it's as bad as some recent things.
No Man of Steel or
where you're
Age
knocking
of
down
Ultron.
buildings.
The whole cities
Yeah.
are being
Yeah.
dropped.
But I could see that being part of the criticism of the San Diego sequence.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're upping the kill count by a lot.
Mm-hmm.
After basically killing the one crew on the island, which consisted of 20 or so people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that the whole story when they're on the island, I think, is really pretty good about the two different groups and having some kind of tension between them, but them also having to work together. I do think that Vince Vaughn's character basically is responsible for a couple of deaths because he disarmed Roland's gun, and he'd have stopped the T-Rex from killing a bunch of people.
Right,
But
right.
the T-Rex is okay. So
Yeah.
the hero of the first film has been saved
Yes.
by the anti-hero of the second film, I guess. It's just a little wild the way that ended up working out. All right. Well, anything else you want to say about the Lost World?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay. Well, this morning I checked my Facebook, and the picture that you tagged me in about the movie last night, the screenshot, I had a comment on it from Todd Liebenow, who's Forgotten Films, and I've been on his podcast a couple of times, and he asked the question, so how many people left after the second film?
Well, I would say the audience basically cut in half after the first film, and then cut in half, maybe even a little bit more than half after the second film. The 2 rows in front of us were basically empty when they had been full, and there were, I don't know how many people were in the balcony, but there were maybe 20 people in the section, in the down section that we were in.
Yeah, it was a lot less. However, to be fair, the movie was starting after midnight, and we even talked about maybe not staying at one point, but it's awfully hard for us to not stay for a movie, even though we're really toasty today.
Yeah, we had gone all the way out there. The good thing is the third movie is the shortest.
Yeah. And
it feels very quick.
It does.
And at that point you're going, it's midnight, it's only going to be an hour and a half, we'll be out of here, we don't have work tomorrow, so we might as well just stay and we'll just sleep in.
Yeah.
If the
Except,
dogs
of course,
would allow us to.
I can never sleep in. I wake up when, at pretty much the same time. Sometimes I can go back to sleep for a little while, which I did today, but I'm a little fried, as they say. But Jurassic Park 3 is probably, of all of the Jurassic Park movies, the one that gets the least amount of love. But I think it's a perfectly serviceable entertainment film. It's summer popcorn movie stuff. It's pretty straightforward, and like you talked about, it's fast and quick and pretty efficient. And it does give us some of the things that we really want in this kind of movie.
Well, I always say about it, when you're coming to the third Jurassic Park film, you're just coming for the dinosaurs eating people. If you care about the other science stuff making sense or the story being perfect, I think you're coming to the wrong film. And I know we're not going to talk about Jurassic World, but I also kind of took that approach to Jurassic World, which is why I think I enjoyed that more than a lot of other people did, because they were expecting it to be a new Jurassic Park. But by the time you get into the third or fourth movie in a series, it's kind of like, unless the series is, really incredible, unless the series is James Bond and you're expecting, that high quality, it's like, they're popcorn films, they're monster movies. At this point, you want T-Rex, you want Velociraptor, and hey, let's amp it up with the new dinosaur.
Yes, and that's the thing I was liking. You get dinosaurs fighting each other in some of this, and that's pretty good. The Spinosaur and the T-Rex go at it early on, and they have that big sequence, and that's one of the things you want to see in the movie. And then they add some different dinosaurs. We get the pterodactyls in the cage, which is one of those things that I think they wanted to do earlier, but they skipped doing it twice.
And I think that's also a really effective sequence.
Yeah.
The fogginess of it, the pterodactyls are creepy looking, and there's an added kind of terror to it because they fly. So if they get you, you're not on the ground able to run away into a bush or something. You're up in the air, and if they drop you, you could die from that.
Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty good sequence. I like all the dinosaurs that they have added in. Again, that was the plus side of having the second movie, is that you got to see a whole bunch of different things. I do think that the raptors are not as interesting or fun in this one. I liked where they were going with it. I could see they were kind of trying to. That was kind of their science-y element of it, in the first couple of movies, it's how they could have been birds, and then, you know, how they were family-centered, sort of. And then this one, it's like, well, maybe if raptors had been allowed to evolve, they would have been really, really intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it works quite as well as they want it to. And the raptors kind of are secondary characters, because you've got the big bad Spinosaurus,
Mm-hmm.
and so I also think you lose a little bit because you don't have a really good creepy sequence with the raptors. You've got chase scenes,
Yeah.
which are fine.
Yeah. This movie is mostly a chase movie.
Yeah.
Lost World is also a chase movie for the most part, but
But you get those moments of tension,
right.
like we said with
Right.
the T-Rexes pushing the van over the cliff, and the raptors in the field. So I think this one suffers a little bit because you don't really have tension. You have excitement from the chase, which is fine.
The plane sequence is pretty exciting and well shot. You know, spinning around when they're inside the fuselage of the plane, and the Spinosaurus is pushing it around and pulling down on it. But there's not. It's all action, action, action. Mm-hmm. There's not any buildup of tension in that particular sequence. It's just straight action in that particular.
The one scene where you kind of get a little bit of tension is the pterodactyl scene.
Right.
Which I think is why the pterodactyl scene is my favorite.
Yeah. And the idea of the giant aviary with the that is supposed to have contained them. I think that's an interesting concept. And of course they use the lighting in the fog really well in that sequence. The parasailing escape or rescue thing is, you had to have some out on that, otherwise Eric is baby food. And so and that didn't seem like it was going to work very well, to have the whole reason that everybody's going to the island be killed once they get there.
Right.
So that's not really going to happen.
And as a chance for Billy to redeem himself.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, I'm not thinking too much by the time I get to this movie, and I'm enjoying the sequences just for what they are in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you try to think too much about it, like, I know people complain about Billy showing up at the end, like, so
how'd that happen?
So how'd that happen? It's like, well, I don't know. It seems kind of mean to kill them all. You know?
We can kill all the secondary mercenary characters, but let's not kill all the major people.
Oh yeah, the two guys go really quickly, and it's like, I don't even. Cooper, was that the name of one of them?
Well, Cooper and Nash, I think.
Nash.
Yeah.
I can't even remember their names.
Yeah.
But and I think I actually kind of. I heard somebody talking on the way out. They think the third movie is actually funnier than the second movie in a lot of ways, and I think that obviously the second and the third movie have more comedic elements in them, but a lot of the dialogue is pretty funny. You've got the Kirbys, who are just kind of buffoons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just want to rescue their son.
Right.
But you got William H. Macy, who's hilarious and charming and just a doofus, and everything that he does is silly. You know, the scene with the vending machine and putting the backpack on, and it's like, I liked all of that.
Yeah, it's a different kind of humor. I think maybe one of the reasons that people don't like it quite as well is because it's not self-referential the way some of the humor is in Lost World or Jurassic Park.
Right.
I mean, in the Lost World, you got Jeff Goldblum making those bon mot comments, when Pirates of the Caribbean breaks down, the pirates don't eat the guests, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And there's a lot of that self-referential sort of thing that goes on in that. You don't get quite as much of that. Instead, it's more straight humor about the characters and the situation that they're in, that they're doing there. But it's like we said, it's a crisp 90-minute film. You know, it's done pretty fast. It's designed to separate you from your wallet and entertain you for a short period of time, and it works pretty well. There are a couple of bits and pieces in it that I appreciated quite a bit.
I wanted to real quick go back to what I was saying about the book. Things from the book making their way into the later films. this is where a lot of the stuff from the second book comes in, and it doesn't really get discussed because you're just seeing the facility. You don't get a lot of discussion about any of the process behind creating the creatures and whatnot. But you get a little bit of like, what were they doing here? This looks kind of like, what's this? And then again later in Jurassic World, you'll get more of an explanation of that kind of stuff. But I liked that, and this I think is the first time that I've watched the movie since I've read the books, and seeing some of that stuff and going, I could see where that was kind of a nod to this thing that happened in the book, and it's kind of nice that they had that. And maybe had it been a different kind of film, they could have explored that, but instead it's this chase film, and that still is fine and entertaining. And like I said, I think it's nice that the Jurassic World part of the series seems to kind of be addressing some of those things. But I like the sequence in the lab with them walking around, and you're kind of going, yeah, what has InGen been up to?
Yeah.
They have this island, and obviously the island wasn't shut down after the first, or even looks like after the first movie, and then after the second movie, there's this whole part of the island that you didn't even get to see in the second movie. So.
Yeah, or barely.
Or barely, yeah.
Barely, because that whole sequence where they are attacked by the raptor in the lab, that is supposed to be the center where
they got attacked by the raptors in the
right,
second movie.
Right.
Right.
And you could see the cars and vehicles set up there like that.
Yeah.
This movie was not directed by Spielberg. It was directed by Joe Johnston, who's a favorite around here, who directed Captain America, the First Avenger, and The Rocketeer.
Yep.
And we've always thought that he was very effective in doing period pieces like that. And this isn't a period piece, but it's like we said, a straightforward kind of action film. And I thought it worked perfectly fine.
I
for
mean,
what it is.
You got Dr. Grant back.
Yeah,
and
I like that.
I
like that.
Dr. Grant's my favorite, and fine, he's in it. Great, I'm there.
So, well, we did get out of the film at 1:45 this morning. Not last night, this morning. So it was a long period of time, and it went late, and I'm too old for this kind of crud. And she's still young enough that she could do it, and she's thought it was too late. So, we have to watch ourselves doing that in the future. But how do you turn down an opportunity to see Jurassic Park, The Lost World, and Jurassic Park 3 at the same time?
Right.
It's just really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. So.
I'll tell you what, it makes me want to watch Jurassic World.
There you go.
So,
So any final thoughts?
Well, I still like the movies. I enjoy watching them whenever we come across them, and every once in a while I do want to sit down and watch. I do now feel like when I want to watch one, I want to watch all of them. I actually think watching the third movie this time around made me like it even more. I only slept a little bit during The Lost World, and that's okay because I think I've seen The Lost World the most. But yeah, I mean, I think that they're actually a pretty good set of films. You're never gonna get to the level that you got in the first film, and as soon as you accept that, I think it's kind of easy going from there on out, because it's just, let's enjoy dinosaurs eating people.
There you go, Aaron. There you go. Now if only you had the same attitude about sharks eating people.
Well, it's different but that's a whole different thing. But Jaws is its own separate thing.
Okay, all right. We won't get into that discussion today. All right, well, thank you very much for watching. If you've stuck around this long, we definitely appreciate it. And keep your eyes open. We'll probably have some future posts that do the same kind of thing. For now, enjoy your summer. It's a Memorial Day weekend and summer 2017. I know technically summer doesn't start until late June, but you know how it is. This is the summer season for movies. So enjoy, and hopefully see you several times between now and Labor Day. Bye.